Welcome to this edition of Chopper Chat. Lovely to have you with us. Hope you've had a great summer. Now, I'm joined today by Phil and Aaron Hanson, who have a special connection, I guess, with the rescue helicopter, don't you? So talk me through the events of July 2020.
Sure. Thanks, Pippa. So the 19th of July 2020, we had an accident, or Aaron had an accident, shall I say, at Muriwai Beach and was airlifted to the Auckland hospital from there. And I guess, it's been a hugely traumatic experience for us, but on the other hand, we're so grateful that, that service was available to get him the critical support that he needed at the time.
Aaron, I would ask you what happened, but you don't remember much of it, is that right?
I remember quite a bit leading up to the injury, but not after the actual impact. So basically I was just riding a dirt bike on Muriwai Beach, as you probably said already. That's pretty much all I remember. Yeah.
And he had a collision with a four-wheel drive vehicle on the beach, and unfortunately in the process he had a couple of broken bones, but the most critical thing that was an issue was that he had a severe traumatic brain injury, which meant that he was unconscious on the beach and needed critical support to get him to some, the medical care that he needed.
What did you talk about the call for the helicopter to be involved as being a life-saving decision. Why do you say that?
Well, from what I understand, talking to some of the crew, that it is one of those cases where Aaron was at such a low level of consciousness that some of the things that we take for granted in terms of keeping our airways clear, breathing, those sorts of things, he was having a lot of difficulty with. So to have people that are kind of really proficient from a paramedic perspective on hand to help him and to make sure that he wasn't actually at risk of immediate kind of suffocation and those sorts of things, that was just really important. And additional, I'm not a medical expert or a neurologist, but what I understand is that with kind of brain trauma, there's a critical window in which, the sooner you get help, the better the longer term prognosis, particularly when there's perhaps some swelling present and bleeding on the brain. So all of those things made it super important for us, for him to be at the hospital as soon as possible. And, the helicopter offered us a way to get him there that was probably, 10 or 15 minutes rather than 45 or an hour, by road. So all of those things were just really critical for us. Yeah.
Well, I'm joined now by James, pilot, and Carl, chief paramedic, of course, from the Rescue Helicopter Service. So we've been talking to Aaron about his situation. He doesn't remember much of what happened, which I'm sure is quite common. But what would the process have been when the chopper arrived?
Talk through first.
So we get the call at the base, and very often we have very little information about what the job is. It's just that there's an accident somewhere, so we get ourselves airborne as quickly as we can with the team, and hopefully get a bit more information on the way to the scene, so the medics could prepare themselves and their equipment for what they see when they get there. Once we arrive, we do a quick assessment to make sure it's safe to land the helicopter. But the aim is to get the guys onto the ground as quickly as possible to get that care to the patient.
And how much time are you spending on the ground versus then trying to get them into the helicopter and, I guess, to hospital as quickly as possible? You do a sort of triage, do you, on the ground there?
Yes, the first thing we do is a triage, exactly. And if it's one patient, obviously it's a bit more simplistic, but it depends on the complexity of the patient. And time, we have to establish how time critical is this patient as well. One thing we normally can't do on the beach is shut down, and that's because we don't want a helicopter washed away, especially if we can't start it again for some reason. So in Aaron's case, he clearly, the crew that attended them were clearly very experienced, and they ascertained very quickly they had a traumatic brain injury. And obviously the primary brain injury, we can't fix that. That's something that has happened. But what we can do is we can fix secondary brain injury, and we do that by managing airway, breathing, and blood pressure control as well. So that's what the guys would have been doing as soon as they got there.
And you obviously have had a chance to see Aaron today, and that must be lovely to see someone, I guess, who's used the service and has come through it so successfully.
Absolutely. Very often We drop our patients off at the hospital, and you feel that you've done them some good because you've got them to the hospital. But for us, often that's the end of the story. We don't often have often don't have a follow up from that. So in a case like Aaron's, where we can see the happy end after a long road to recovery, for us that really makes the job completely worthwhile. That you've done a job and you've seen what the outcome of that job was. It's a good feeling.
And obviously, from our point of view too, we're a important but small piece of the puzzle, and it's great to see what good pre-hospital care, good in-hospital care, then good post-hospital care does, and the outcomes that comes from that.
Oh, James, Carl, thank you both so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Well, Megan and Julia from ABI join me now, and you were heavily involved in Aaron's recovery. I'll talk about that shortly, but just tell me about ABI first.
Yeah, so ABI Rehabilitation is it's an organisation that supports adults and teenagers to recover from moderate to severe brain injuries. And so we are a really comprehensive team that involves speech-language therapists, physios, psychologists, occupational therapists, the whole lot, just to make sure people can recover to their best.
So, Julia, you were Aaron's physio.
Yes.
So he talked about, getting the left side of his body up and functioning. So what did that involve?
So predominantly we did a lot of strength training to help strengthen up his left side, but also we had to make a splint for his left elbow. He had a lot of increased tone in the elbow joint, and if we don't do splinting when the muscles are weak, they can end up stuck like this. And essentially the first line is trying to prevent that happening, and then once the muscles get stronger, we can move out of the splint. So but as you can see, his elbow's fully functional now, and he's got full range. We did a lot of balance retraining because when he first arrived, he couldn't stand and balance unsupported. So he needed two people to walk with in a big walking frame. So we're there for his first steps, and progressing him off all walking frames, needing any assistance, and being independent indoors and outdoors, as you can see today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, he's just a healthy, fit 21-year-old as
Yeah.
far as I can see.
Yeah.
Yeah. That must be a wonderful part of your job, seeing that progress, I guess. And Megan, you work with speech and language?
Yeah, so I'm a speech and language therapist. And so I think, like, from my perspective and my role is really around communication, but in all the skills that allow for us to communicate effectively, which includes, our cognition and our thinking, not, as well as language, but it's how we do it. It's, the anxiety that it can evoke, also just how we can do it easily. So, we help people and see how that's changed because of the brain injury. And so lots of subtle things can change. So the speed at which you process information, how you keep up in conversations, the right word that you choose to use. And so all of those things as speech therapists, we have to figure out how that's shown up in that person. And it's different for everybody. So you just spend a lot of time getting to know Aaron and getting to know the family and to see who he was, who he is after the injury, and how you get him back to what he wants to do. Yeah,
absolutely. Phil talked about with the type of injury that Aaron had suffered, how that time, the shortened time, I guess, it took to get him to hospital, courtesy of the helicopter, how that can make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that makes a difference. Intensive rehab makes a difference. You have all of these things that have to work cohesively together to make sure the best kind of ingredients are put together for a good recovery. So it does. It's an absolute team effort. Yeah.
I've obviously had the opportunity to meet Aaron's mum and dad today too, and I take it family is a very big part of rehab, is it?
Absolutely. So, we could not do it without family. So like I said, when you're getting to know a person, you have to really know who they are individually. And the best people who know that are the family, as well as just day to day trying to take in place and put in place strategies, things that we're kind of working, with the client with. And the family is an integral part of that.
They also, provide more rehab opportunities. as therapists, you can only see people a certain amount of time per day. We give clients homework, and obviously a lot of them can't remember some of the exercises that we've prescribed for them, and the family are there all the time. Well, Aaron's family were there a lot of the time, and they were actually really instrumental in helping him to improve, and the rate of his improvement is largely due to their assistance. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Julie. Thank you, Megan. Thanks so much for joining us.
No worries.
So, Aaron, it's been over 18 months since your accident. How are you now?
I'm doing really well. A lot of the recovery was done in the first sort of months following the injury, but since then I've just been kind of working my way back into everyday life. So just working full time now. Well, 4 days a week, which is enough. And just kind of hanging out with friends and that sort of thing.
Like a normal 21-year-old guy.
I'm trying.
So as you sit here and you think about Westpac Rescue Helicopter and ABI, you feel...
Oh, just so grateful.
Feels really good. I mean, I wouldn't be here I am today the way I am now without their help, so I couldn't be more grateful. So thank you.
So Phil, you're an artist, so you came up with an idea basically of a way that you could, I guess, say thanks.
Yeah, and I think it's a way of kind of both sort of celebrating the beautiful country we live in, but also making a connection to these great organisations that help people in tremendous ways, like we've talked about.
So what are the scenes, they're beautiful landscapes, what are the scenes of?
Well, I'll start with the one that probably has the most personal meaning, which is probably the exact spot where Aaron had his accident, and that's at Muriwai Beach, just approaching sunset. And so that's a kind of really personal reminder for me of how grateful we are that he's still with us. So, that's an iconic beach, which I think everybody loves to go to if you're in the Auckland area. There's also one of the Waihi Beach, and that's based on kind of a scene, again, it's just after sunset, that one, and it's called the Earth Shadow, and it's got some of those kind of pink hues in it. And then there's one of Mount Taranaki, and it's kind of looking over Lake Mangamahui. I think I have the name right, but that's actually just in the autumn time, so it's got those lovely autumn colours. There's also one of Lake Wakatipu down in Queenstown, because we all love to get down to Queenstown, and that's again in the autumn time, some of those beautiful reflections of the autumn colours in the water. And then the last one is actually of a scene at Onatangi Beach in Waiheke Island, and that's of a little rundown dinghy that's on the beach, but really colourful and has a lot of character. So those are the paintings that we have.
And the auction starts on the 18th of February. The paintings are spectacular. You've really got to have a look. You've got 10 days. And thank you so much to all of my guests for joining us today. A special thanks to Aaron and Phil for your time with us as well. And we will see you for the next edition of Chopper Chat.